Have you ever wondered what it felt like to sit in a room in complete darkness and hear whispers of the dead? To feel an invisible presence brush past your skin as if reality itself had thinned? In the Victorian era, this was no idle curiosity or childhood superstition. This was a dangerous fascination. People genuinely believed they could summon spirits from beyond the grave, and the parlors of London, New York, and Paris were filled with dimly lit séances, spiraling questions, and trembling participants hoping for a glimpse of the beyond. It all began with a profound societal shift. The Victorian age, stretching from 1837 to 1901, was a time of technological marvels and scientific discovery. Steam engines roared, gas lamps illuminated foggy streets, and the world seemed to shrink as railways and telegraphs connected continents. Yet, beneath this veneer of progress lurked a deep fear of mortality and a desperate curiosity about what awaited beyond life. Death was omnipresent. High infant mortality, rampant disease, and frequent funerals were grim reminders that life was fleeting. It's little wonder that spiritualism, the belief that the living could communicate with the dead, found such fertile ground. Spiritualism officially took root in the United States in the 1840s, with the infamous Fox Sisters of Hydesville, New York. They claimed to hear mysterious rapping sounds from spirits in their home. Soon, these rappings became words, and words became messages from the dead. The sisters' claims triggered a cultural explosion. Mediums emerged everywhere, offering messages from lost loved ones in exchange for money, while scientific societies debated whether these phenomena were genuine or charlatanry. Victorians didn't just flirt with ghosts, they invited them in. Wealthy families hosted elaborate séances in ornate parlors, furnished with heavy velvet drapes, polished mahogany tables, and crystal chandeliers that flickered in the candlelight. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and participants would hold hands, forming human chains, hoping to channel spirits through a medium. It was believed that spirits could not move freely in the physical realm, so they required human conduits to manifest their presence. Yet the séances were not always solemn affairs. There were ghostly theatrics. Tables would tilt, chairs would rock, and ghostly hands were said to press against participants' palms. Some mediums could allegedly make objects levitate, or summon cold drafts that swept through the room like icy fingers. And while skeptics dismissed many of these feats as tricks, the thrill of witnessing the inexplicable, and perhaps communicating with a departed loved one, was irresistible. By the mid-19th century, spiritualism had crossed the Atlantic, captivating Europe. Aristocrats, artists, and even scientists were drawn to the phenomenon. In London, newspapers reported séances attended by prominent figures, while private homes became laboratories of terror and curiosity. Ghost hunting manuals appeared, offering instructions on how to summon spirits safely. Some suggested using mirrors to attract spirits, while others warned that certain spirits, angry, lost, or mischievous, might cling to the living. And, in a society obsessed with propriety, the idea that death could reach across the veil of the living was thrillingly taboo. The historical context reveals something more chilling. Victorian ghosts were not mere fictions. Death was woven into daily life, and the boundary between the living and the dead felt disturbingly thin. Mourning was ritualized, widows wore black for years, children were buried in elaborate coffins, and letters were written to the deceased as though they could still respond. Spiritualism offered hope, but also terror, as it suggested the dead were not gone. They were waiting, watching, and perhaps lingering too close to the living. And in those parlor rooms, dimly lit and cold, the air often crackled with something unexplainable. Could it be a trick of the mind, a product of grief and desire? Or did spirits truly glide through the candlelight, waiting for their moment to reveal themselves? By the 1860s, spiritualism had evolved into an intricate system of beliefs and rituals. Séances were not merely social curiosities. They were meticulously structured events governed by specific practices meant to summon and communicate with spirits safely. Central to these beliefs was the role of the medium. Mediums were seen as bridges between worlds. Some could hear the dead, clairaudience, some could see them, clairvoyance, and some could move objects or manipulate energy to manifest a spirit's presence, psychokinesis. Mediums often claimed to enter trance states, their bodies stiff and unresponsive as spirits allegedly spoke through them. The room itself became a sacred chamber. Participants would often kneel, hold hands, or sit around a circular table, chanting or repeating prayers to encourage the spirits to appear. Physical manifestations were key to the Victorian ghost experience. Tables rattled, objects levitated, musical instruments played without human touch, and the air would grow inexplicably cold. Some mediums allowed spirits to write messages on slates or leave faint fingerprints on fogged mirrors. Others claimed that spirits could sing, whisper secrets, or even tug at the clothing of the living. Victorians often adhered to strict rules during séances. Silence was paramount. Even a cough could disrupt a delicate spiritual connection. Candles were placed strategically to cast shadows that might reveal spirits' shapes, while mirrors reflected light in ways thought to entice or focus a spirit's energy. Every detail, from seating arrangements to the direction participants faced, was meticulously considered. Spirit photography also emerged in the late 19th century, offering tangible proof of the supernatural. Photographers claimed to capture ghostly images on film, faint, ethereal forms hovering near the living. Some photos showed shadowy figures with hollow eyes or translucent hands resting on the shoulders of the unsuspecting. While skeptics exposed many as hoaxes, believers saw them as undeniable evidence that the dead were present, watching and sometimes guiding the living. Beliefs extended beyond mere contact. Victorian society embraced the idea that spirits could impart wisdom, warn of danger, or provide comfort. Mourning families frequently sought reassurance that loved ones were at peace, while the curious or adventurous were drawn to messages promising secret knowledge or glimpses of the afterlife. Some even used séances to seek guidance on business decisions, love, or travel, entrusting their fate to entities that might not have their best interests at heart. There was, of course, a darker side. Not all spirits were benevolent. Victorian manuals warned of earthbound spirits, souls tethered by anger, sorrow, or unfinished business. These entities were believed capable of causing physical harm, inducing madness, or haunting entire households. Participants were cautioned to respect the spirits, to avoid provoking them, and to cease the séance immediately if danger was sensed. Ghosts were not toys, they were forces that could slip through the veil into our world. Some séances became terrifying spectacles. Mediums would enter trance states and claim possession by restless spirits. Participants described feeling unseen hands gripping their arms, icy breath on the nape of their necks, and whispers of names long dead. Objects might fly across the room, chairs overturn, or curtains rise and fall without wind. The tension in the room was palpable, a mix of fear, excitement, and anticipation that pushed people to the edge of belief. Victorian ghost beliefs therefore were not mere entertainment. They were an elaborate system blending grief, hope, curiosity, and fear. People believed they were interacting with souls, entities that existed beyond the physical world, waiting for the chance to communicate. And in the quiet aftermath of a séance, when the candle flames flickered and the room fell still, participants often wondered, had they truly glimpsed another world, or had their minds conjured illusions from desire and dread? Though spiritualism's popularity waned after the turn of the 20th century, its legacy endures. The Victorian obsession with ghosts left an indelible mark on culture, literature, and modern paranormal practices. Gothic novels, for instance, drew heavily from these experiences. Writers like Henry James and Arthur Conan Doyle, himself a believer in spiritualism, crafted tales where the living and the dead intersected in ways both terrifying and poignant. Séances and spirit communication infiltrated social practices, influencing etiquette, mourning rituals, and even fashion. Mourning jewelry containing hair from deceased loved ones became common, as did post-mortem photography, a haunting attempt to preserve a connection between worlds. Victorian ghost culture transformed death from a private sorrow into a shared, almost theatrical, experience. Today, paranormal enthusiasts still trace their practices to Victorian roots. Ghost tours, haunted houses, and spirit mediums echo the era's fascination with life beyond death. Many of the techniques, darkened rooms, holding hands, chanting, or using objects as conduits, mirror Victorian rituals. Modern paranormal investigations often use spirit boxes, or EVP, electronic voice phenomena, recordings, tools not so different in purpose from slate writing or rapping tables. Yet, the Victorian approach to ghosts carried a psychological weight that modern adaptations sometimes overlook. Participants often experienced genuine terror, not as a form of entertainment, but as a confrontation with mortality. The séance was a space where grief, fear, and longing coalesced into tangible phenomena. Even today, those who explore abandoned houses, dark forests, or forgotten graveyards report sensations eerily reminiscent of Victorian accounts. Cold drafts, whispers, and fleeting shadows that vanish when approached. There is also a cautionary legacy. Many mediums were charlatans, preying on the grieving or the credulous. The blurred line between belief and deception remains a cautionary tale. In a room dimly lit by candlelight, where fear can conjure visions as vivid as reality, how can one be certain that what they experience is genuine? The Victorian ghosts linger in memory, challenging the living to discern truth from illusion, hope from exploitation. Some claim that the spirits themselves, bound by lingering energy, persist in the spaces they haunted. Abandoned mansions, neglected burial grounds, and forgotten parlors continue to draw those seeking contact. Witnesses report phenomena that mirror Victorian descriptions: objects moving on their own, disembodied voices, and sudden chills that raise goosebumps along the spine. The past and present converge in these moments, as if the ghosts of Victorian curiosity and dread still roam, waiting for those who dare to look. The legacy is, in essence, a reminder of the thin line separating life from death. The Victorian séance was not just a curiosity, it was a manifestation of humanity's deepest fears and desires. And as long as humans wrestle with the unknown, the echoes of those candlelit rooms, the rattling tables, and the whispered names will never truly fade. Imagine yourself, candle in hand, entering a darkened Victorian parlor. The air is cold and the walls seem to close in. Chairs sit in a circle, untouched yet ominous. You take a seat, joining strangers, or perhaps spirits, around a polished mahogany table. A medium sits across from you, eyes closed, lips moving in silent incantation. The room grows still, the silence pressing in. Suddenly, a chill sweeps through, unlike any wind. The candle flickers violently, casting shadows that twist and stretch unnaturally. A faint whisper curls around your ear, a name, perhaps yours or someone you have lost. You clutch the table, feeling the surface vibrate beneath your trembling fingers. The medium's hands twitch as if guided by invisible forces. Then, a cold brush against your neck, a gentle but insistent touch, makes your skin crawl. You glance around, and the shadows seem to stretch toward you, hungry and deliberate. Victorian ghosts were more than stories. They were experiences that left indelible marks on those who encountered them. Participants often describe sensations of being watched, touched, or even pulled. Some reported seeing spectral faces hovering inches from their own, their mouths opening in silent cries. Others felt hands grip their shoulders or heard whispered warnings too faint to understand, yet too urgent to ignore. The most chilling accounts are the ones that linger in memory long after the séance ends. People described leaving rooms feeling profoundly altered, as if part of their soul had remained behind. Letters would arrive, objects would move inexplicably, and cold drafts would appear at precise locations where no ventilation existed. Some families claimed that spirits followed them home, attached like invisible chains, waiting for the next opportunity to manifest. Even skeptics were not immune. Scientists and writers who attended séances reported inexplicable phenomena that could not be easily dismissed. The era's obsession with the afterlife, grief and curiosity created a perfect storm. The mind, eager to believe, could perceive the imperceptible, yet what if perception alone wasn't responsible? What if some force, unseen yet real, had indeed slipped through the fragile barrier between worlds? And so, the Victorian ghost remains a haunting question in our history. Not just a symbol of superstition, but a mirror reflecting our deepest fears about death, the unknown, and what waits just beyond the veil. They remind us that in darkness, the line between reality and imagination blurs, and what we see, or feel, may be more than mere illusion. In the end, perhaps the most terrifying thought of all is this: when you are alone in a quiet room, feeling the air grow inexplicably cold, and hearing whispers that do not belong to anyone alive, are you truly alone? Or is there something lingering, patiently waiting to reveal itself, just as the Victorians believed?